Do you think all our phones,
Yeah.
automatically at the same time, or is it
Yeah.
exactly, I mean, I've never done that, but if
It
all our
should
phones
be.
are
To
sitting in the
synchronize our
same
phones
room,
right
are
here?
our
This will be
phones all-
awesome.
They should be all be on the
Are
same.
they?
Yeah,
Are they
it
all-
should be.
I don't.
And-
You're almost certain.
Yeah,
What happens if somebody
6:30 says
isn't?
mine.
except for, you
It
ever
says
find those
6:32.
spots where it like goes to
Yours
the
says
other time
6:32?
zone?
Oh, well, yeah, where you get by the Canadian border and all of a sudden you're,
That is
oh, we're in
weird.
Canada
Well,
now, I
everybody
guess.
says-
Even up,
6:30.
even up by Elbow Lake.
Except,
Yeah.
It's always on the-
We're 2 minutes.
We're going right.
yeah.
Okay, this meeting's called to order. We've got everybody except for Anton. Who knows where he's at right now? Good luck. Open the open forum. Does anyone have anything that they would like to speak to the council? Everyone's on the agenda, so I will close the open forum. Move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda has a number of things on it. Usual 3 and then 3 permits. These are permits we've seen before: the Lions Club raffle permit, the fireworks permit, and the North Shore Federal Credit Union, their appreciation party permit. If someone would like to pull one of those things for discussion, we can certainly do that. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda
I
as.
move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, then, moving back down to the next thing, Park Department report.
We're gonna skip that though.
We
because
are.
Dave's not gonna be here, so we can wait till the end.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to the Public Works Facility Project update. So I assume we got our super who's gonna come up and tell us a little something about how things are going. We've seen some dirt starting to move. We've seen some buildings rolling out of there. We've seen some heavy equipment rolling in. Do you have anything else to tell us other than that?
That's it, I'm done. No.
That was rolling.
It's rolling.
I appreciate that.
First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is John Hagenmiller. I'm with McGough Construction. I've met quite a bit of you already. I just want to give you a quick schedule update and see where we're at and some outlooks that we're sort of milestones that we are looking for. Right now, as you can see, we've removed just almost the majority of the trees. We're mulching them up at this time. We're going to use a bunch of the mulch for soil stabilization around the site. We are probably going to have some extra, so we're trying to figure out what we can do with that. We also installed our silt fence. It helps our soil erosion also. And we're going to start excavating the foundation on Friday. And then that'll lead into footings and foundation starting Monday. We've also started rough grading the site. As you can see, there's a big bulldozer up there. It's starting to move around a lot more dirt than just the backhoe that we have. Also, we started working on the retainage pond on the south side of the building. And some of our major outlooks, right now we're still waiting for the State Department of Labor for our plumbing and utility plan review. We're expecting that around the 15th of June. After that, we'll start our site utilities. We'd like to have started earlier, but some plans weren't submitted early enough, so it is about a 5-week turnaround for them, since it is getting the construction season. Footing foundation, like I said, we're going to start Monday, and we're expecting around the completion around the 16th of June, and that'll give us about a week and a half to backfill, install our helical piers. That's going to be holding up the precast while the bar joists and metal deck go on. As soon as that is all installed, then we can take those out, and then we'll start prepping for concrete. But our precast is scheduled for right around the 26th of June. So it's starting to roll together a little bit. It didn't look like much the last few weeks, but as soon as we get some bunch of the trees down, and it really looks different just even in the last couple of days. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or like as always, you're welcome to stop at the site. Just stop in at the trailer, grab a hard hat, look me up, and we'll take a walk.
So we've approved a lot of the bids that have come through. There's still some that are
Yeah, some of
coming through in
the
future.
smaller ones that are later in the project, they're still evaluating them, and I thought they'd be done by this Wednesday, but it sounds like the next meeting everything should be shaken out with that.
So does it look like everything's coming together in a way that you'll be able to have this seamless transition from one part of the project to the next. Because I
Yeah.
know, like you were saying, that you'll have all the foundation stuff done by the 15th of June, and then the precast comes on the 26th. And,
Yeah.
you know, so that
Well,
you know,
there
that's-
is a gap that we have to have.
I know. I
because-
think that's
yeah.
great, but
Well, just for other work,
Mhm.
you know, we're, at that point, we can actually install our utility line going from the, that actually comes in the building, because one contractor takes it from 5 feet all the way to the main, and the other contractor takes it from 5 feet from the foundation into the building. And we want to do that, so we minimize excavation around the building.
Mhm.
So we'll have two parties in at one time, so that takes a little bit of time. Plus with backfilling, we have to compact every, I think it's 18 inches that it's called for. And so it's not just throwing dirt in and walking away. We have to, procedures, plus there's foundation insulation that needs to go on. And we have to build some temporary roads for the crane that's going to be coming in too. So it's about a 2-week duration in between, a week and a half, depending on weather and stuff like that, to
Mhm.
2 weeks. So there is a little bit of duration, but all the little gaps are somewhat filled
okay.
in between.
I guess the point of that question was to identify whether you found any challenges that have presented themselves in getting the contractors to show up when they need to show up. That
As
would,
of,
that would
yeah.
delay the project in any way.
As of right now, some of our major components to the project, the precast, the structural steel or the bar joists and metal decking, that is all ordered. And it's basically, it's being made. The precast panels are, I think they go into production in the next week. And so they'll be ready by the 26th. The bar joists are supposed to be delivered per the schedule. All the shop drawings have been approved. I just re-reviewed the precast drawings for opening sizes to make sure everything is good, because it's sort of a pain to cut a little bit larger opening in a concrete panel, or infill it, whatever way you want to say. But right now, our major components are working, falling in the schedule. With our subcontractors, they're actually falling quite good in order, because we're getting our shop drawings well in advance, so it can be reviewed by the architect and engineer.
Cool.
So, and Eric says, hopefully in the next few days, Eric, the project manager, he should be able to have a little bit more projection on the actual construction budget compared to what was budgeted, you know, when actually all the numbers are in. So he should have that soon. So we're still evaluating a few people, but right now it's trending to the good.
That's great.
So.
Yeah, that's something we can look at your next meeting, when Eric will probably be here to just pick up those last couple of bid items,
Tracy's
And-
not gonna be here.
and Jay may not as well. But also,
Get Anton here.
that we'll be done digging in the ground, we'll know what we're gonna see underground for at least the foundations at that point, so.
Yeah. Right now, everything is looking good. There is a few wet spots that we have to take a look at. And Braun, who's going to be doing the soil engineering or the testing, they're going to be testing the soils, the welds on the steel, and the concrete. So we'll have those up as soon as we start excavating for the footings. And where that old foundation one was, it was real wet. It was holding water, so, and the water was down. So there might be a small correction, but it's too hard to tell. We still have to dig down to what elevation we need to be at. It looks good up top, but you never know what's on the bottom.
That's the truth, isn't it?
Thanks, John.
Thank
Yeah,
you very much.
great.
And if for some odd reason Eric is going to make it, I'll be back at the rest of the meetings to
Sounds
keep you
good.
updated.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks a
Thank you.
lot.
All right, so moving right along, we have the PUC. Come on up. I guess.
Maybe we should let Chris just take it
Do you
from
wanna-
here. Everybody can come up together, though.
Yeah, why don't you guys all come up together? So we've got a bunch of a bunch of bond sale stuff that we need to Then we need to work out. I don't know who exactly wants to lead this party
This
from you
guy.
guys. Yeah, that probably makes the
The
most
agenda
sense.
says approve it and then give the report. I think we should invert that.
Okay,
That's okay with you?
I was wondering about that because it was like, well, report on the fact that nothing.
Seems like
it's all
Need a
pending.
microphone?
Sure, so, if you just want to point it at me, so, thank you, Mayor, members of council, city staff. My name is Chris Mickelson. I work for Ellers and Associates. We're based out of Roseville, Minnesota. We have been retained by the city to be the municipal advisory firm that has assisted the city with debt issuances in the past and with this debt issuance that we did here at 10 o'clock this morning to finance a portion of the Public Works facility. And so what I have with me this evening is the sale day report that kind of lays out the sale results from earlier today. And so, I'm sorry, I only have 7 copies, so if you could maybe start with the,
Everybody wants
if you
to-
start with the council member on the.
Let those guys share one, and then we'll share one.
Sure.
Thank you.
So while that's going around, just as a side note, this is something that that Mike and Kim both know, but my wife is actually from Grand Marais. And so I was just up here on Saturday. We were up here Saturday through Monday, staying with my mother and father-in-law. And so I'm happy to be back up here again today. But we had a great weekend of four-wheeling on the trails and hiking to Devil's Cattle area and even did high tea at Nanabiju. So
There you go.
Oh,
it was
Hitting it all.
yeah, so we're up here probably anywhere from maybe 4 to 6 times a year, and now I'm also very, very happy, thankful to work with you guys in a professional capacity. So if we just cut right to the chase, I guess, inside of this sale day report, the first page lays out the results from this morning's sale. So at 10 o'clock this morning, the bidding closed, and you can see there we received 4 bids for this bond issuance. And the low bidder was Northland Securities. They're based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And their low bid came in at 2.4059%. And that's measured on what we call a TIC, or true interest cost. What a TIC does is it basically looks at all the maturities and gives you an average. And it's an apples to apples comparison, one bid to another, which is kind of tricky to do because one bidder might bid more premium than another. One bidder might bid more discount than another. So discount is one of the ways that an underwriter will pay their firm, compensate their firm for their time. And then premium is any amount that's received above and beyond par for the bonds. And so what TIC does is it kind of captures all of that and gives you an apples to apples comparison, one bidder to the next. And so you can see the low bid that was received was just over 2.4%. High bid was just over 2.58%. And that translates to savings of a little over $50,000, low bid to high bid. The cover bid on this, I'm going off of memory, but was just over 2.43%. I think it was maybe 2.44%. And cover bid would be the second bid, so the bid just behind the low bid. So there was a strong appetite for this debt. And we're very pleased, especially with the fact that in our pre-sale report, we had estimated just over 2.8%. And so the city will see savings of 40 basis points from what we presented, and that's in that pre-sale report. And so that will translate to significant debt service savings. You can see as you work your way through this chart here, the first thing that might jump out is the principal amount originally for this issue was par amount of $3.64 million. And you can see that we've reduced that down to $3.575 million. We were able to do that because we received a significant amount of premium, and that's a pricing structure where the underwriter will pay the issuer a price of something over par, over the face value of the bonds. And they do that not just because they're nice guys, but they do that so then that enables them to bump up the couponing a little bit. And so that you ultimately, let's say you took all of that premium, you used it to reduce your principal entirely by that amount of the premium. What you then end up paying on the higher coupons is basically a wash because you've downsized your bonds. But what that allows the underwriter to do by increasing the coupon is it makes for a more marketable security when they're trying to sell to the end investor. And that's really a result of being in this low interest rate environment where they're, having to market, say, like a 1% bond. That's kind of a tough thing to do. And so this allows them to turn these into more like 2.5% or 3% coupons. And so what we were able to do with this issue is we were able to capture some premium and apply that to the project construction fund, which will allow the city to use a little bit less equity contribution, a little bit less cash. Unfortunately, we're not able to capture all of the premium because on the CIP portion of this, so if you remember, we're doing split portion, CIP portion, and utility revenue portion. So statute only allows to go gross production of 2% over the par amount that was originally approved by the council. And so the authorizing resolution for the CIP that the council passed on April 26th was for $2,095,000. And so when you take 2% above that, you get to ballpark $2,130,000. And so being able to use all of that premium, reducing the par by a little bit so that your gross proceeds don't exceed that 2.13 is what puts us at a par that's just a little less than this 3.64 million. So that's why we're now down to 3.575.
So where does the rest of that premium go then? Does that
It's
stay?
extra cash in our pocket.
That's what I
So
was,
that means
that's what I was hoping.
what
Yeah.
he said is we're going to use that to write down the amount of cash of our own we were going to spend on the project. So, and that was kind of the option that we talked about this morning. Do we want to write down the balance of the principal, or do we want to use that extra cash, basically borrow more money on these great terms? And we thought, well, let's borrow as much of this as we can, because this is as good the terms as we're going to get, and we know we have a lot of other projects coming up.
Mhm.
So to Mike's point, to get an average interest rate of about 2.4% on 15 maturities is really an incredible result. And so it's definitely worth hanging on to some cash and accessing that very efficient financing. So we've already touched on a lot of the other key points here in this chart. The closing date would be on or around June 28th, and that's the date that the city would receive the proceeds from this sale. And so if we want to just maybe quickly flip through the attachments, the bid tabulation is the next document, and that just shows the 4 bids that were received. And you can see on the Northland chart, it has both the coupon rate as well as the reoffering yield. And that spread between the two is basically the premium, a result of the premium structure.
Got it.
And then flipping to the next document would be the total sources and uses. We've laid out the CIP portion, utility revenue portion. You can see here that as a result of accessing some of this premium, the city is able to bring a little less than the originally proposed $1.5 million in cash, now looking at $1.368 million in cash. And you can see, most importantly, at the bottom of this, PCF, Project Construction Fund, stays at $5 million. So the city is maintaining that Project Construction Fund size while reducing its cash contribution. The next page shows the city's debt service schedule for the life of this issuance, and that's combining the separate portions, the 2 portions.
Got it.
This part might be interesting to think about.
Yeah, this is.
We're looking at $300,000 a year of payments, basically, for most of the life of this bond as we're paying it back. And we had thought about maybe half of that coming from utility funds and half of that coming from city funds as a budget number when we started talking about this. So, that's not the way we structured this. We've got more of this in CIP than in the utility fund side. We'll probably end up using more utility revenues than are pledged, because that's what our budgets are ready to do. But just keep that in mind, 300,000, we're talking about maybe $150,000 of that's gonna come from property taxes. And could conceivably be more than that. We have the authority to raise more than that in property taxes through the CIP portion of this.
But only the CIP portion.
Yeah.
So the next debt service schedule that is shown is strictly for the CIP portion. And the one following that is for the utility revenue portion.
You just said it might actually.
Yeah, so
Be more.
the CIP portion being the 2 million that we borrowed under the capital improvement authority, legal authority, that allows us to levy property tax dollars to pay back, and it's limited to a certain amount, that we wanted to use for this project. That's really the only way to get property tax authority on a project like this, the only easy way to do it. That we may decide, though, that we're not going to come up with $170,000 a year in property taxes, and we might actually kind of flip those ratios. And we can use those utility revenues to pay a portion of this back if we want to, and as long as we're making our bond payments, people really don't care how we do it, as long as it's all coming from legal sources.
And then finally, the last attachment in this document is just the ratings report that was received from S&P. So as a part of this bond issuance, we got a new rating from S&P, both for this specific issue as well as the city's overall geo credit. And you can see the city maintained its AA stable rating, which is a very good outcome. And that definitely is a major component in receiving such a low cost of capital. And so these bullet points sort of go into detail, or they're just kind of quick hits on what S&P looks at, how they determine their rating. And I will just say they use basically like a 5-point Likert scale, going from very weak to very strong, adequate being like a 3, adequate being in the middle. And so there's not a lot of flexibility in terms of telling them, well, you're saying this is weak. We think it's more like it's really them plugging information into a model, and then it's the model spitting out a number, and then them assigning that a word to that number. And so I will just say thank you to both Kim and Mike for your guys' participation and due diligence in the rating process. That was very much appreciated, and you guys really put a lot of work into that. And so you made our jobs much easier. So thank you very much for your time and attentiveness on this. With all that being said, I'm happy to yield for any questions, or we can move on to next steps.
I want to point out on page 5 of the ratings report, they have an upside and downside scenario in the middle of the page. This is basically what sorts of things might have changed our rating. And I think this is useful to note. They would raise the rating based on the economy, not based on anything that we would do. So I think we've taken the steps that are necessary to get our rating as high as it can be. There's a few things that Kim and I are intending to do just based on our conversations with the ratings agencies, beef up some policies. And, we've talked already about our capital improvement plan getting a little more complex.
Yeah.
Those things came up in the report, and we're going to do that. The downside is the deterioration of our financial performance, or pressuring reserves to levels no longer in line. What does that mean? Their very strong reserves are 75% of your annual spending, and ours are significantly higher than that right now. So we know that we positioned ourselves here on purpose, and we're planning on spending quite a bit of these reserves on some of these projects. But now we've got a target that we can shoot for, that we know if we get below, it's potentially going to impact our rating. Our reserves, and the other thing is our budgetary performance, meaning we always seem to do a little bit better every year than we say we were going to, or some of the things that they like about us organizationally. So we should try to maintain those as long as we're planning on asking for a rating and borrowing money.
And does this project influence this? How does this project influence this?
This rating came through with that project in mind.
They knew we were doing it, so they were, we had already talked about what sorts of money we were planning on spending on this project and how much we were planning on borrowing. But mostly their rating is independent of that. They're looking at previous year's results to make most of their findings.
So to that question, the debt financing for this project would contribute really to just one of these bullets, and that would be the weak debt and contingent liability position. And so they are capturing this financing in the overall debt profile of the city. But I will say there's a reason why that's very near the bottom of these bullets, and it's because they only use that to account for 10% of the total rating. And so you kind of think that debt financing should be a major component of any organization or municipality's credit, but in reality, it's only 10% of your city's bond rating, whereas the adequate economy, which is kind of challenging for a small community that's a tourist-heavy, recreation-heavy economy, unfortunately for the city of Grand Marais, it accounts for 30% of your total bond rating. And so even though, to Mike's point, the city's financial health is very much in order to have such strong fund balances, it's almost unfortunate that that's only giving you one extra bump. I mean, to have fund balances in excess of 75% of expenditures, that gives you one notch up. So that brought you from AA minus to AA, which is great. But unfortunately, because it's a relatively small component of the overall rating, whereas economy is a relatively large component, it makes it that much trickier to go from AA to AA plus.
So once again, you should never have all your eggs in one basket. And here we are,
Right.
as always.
The other thing is, there's our rating. It's very strong. It
It's
could
really
get
good.
stronger, but our rates, I don't see our rates getting a lot lower than that.
No,
So-
and
This is
I
pretty
can't
remarkable.
imagine, had we priced this at a AA plus, I can't imagine you're seeing much, if any, savings, to be honest. So this is one of those results that, shortly following the election, we saw the bond market kind of tick up a little bit, and then it kind of flatlined, and now we're actually seeing it start to creep back down. So in terms of market timing, this really worked out well. In terms of, this is an odd date to have a meeting, fifth Wednesday, last day of the month. So for Ellers, this was our only sale on the calendar today. And so I think a
That
combination of
definitely
things really led to this being a really a tremendous result. And so if you were, say, AA plus, but we priced this on a busy sale day, then that alone could have actually made this a more expensive financing, even though you're a better credit.
How often do we get rated? Just every time we look at our,
We have to pay for this process. So
Right.
when we're going to sell debt, then we consider, and usually lately we've been deciding to pay for a rating.
yeah, I was just curious.
Then annually, they've come back and done surveillance rating
Mhm.
on us. So what, you see the new rating in here for the geo debt, but they also kind of looked at our utility revenue side and reaffirmed that number. And they've been looking at our electric debt and surveilling that pretty regularly, so.
I was just curious, like what the rating was in 2009 or any particular
I'm not sure if we
economic
got a
slump.
rating in
Okay,
2009.
yeah, right.
What's happened most recently is actually a notch upgrade from AA minus to AA.
When did that?
And if I'm remembering right, that happened in 2014, was it?
I think it was 13.
13?
Somewhere in there, okay.
So
Last time
within
we
the last
borrowed a big chunk of money.
3 or 4 years.
And is that kind of as low as we've been for quite a while, or AA minus?
I can't speak to the historical rating. Kim
No, I
might
think
know
it was
this.
single A, and then it was a AA minus, and then it was.
Do you remember when single A was?
I think it was the downtown project.
I don't remember if we rated that, so no.
Okay.
But if you
I
want
was
to come
curious.
chat sometime about
Yeah.
it, we'll dig out the files with you.
We're on
I
an
think-
uphill.
Yeah, the
Tick.
bottom line is
Yeah,
that,
no, that's great.
that we're, I think we're
Impressive.
we're holding the fort down pretty solidly and keeping things nice and strong the way the direction that they should be.
And we're taking advantage of some historic low interest
Yeah.
rates.
So that's all definitely in our favor. And keeping our cash on hand because it's only gonna be worth more. So that's good.
Well, you want to make this official?
I'm interested. So, do you guys have any final closing comments or anything like that? So the council have any? The council have any final?
What's the process?
We have a resolution.
Well, each board has a resolution. I don't think it matters which order you do them in. So if you want to.
PUC call their
Convene
meeting
our
to order.
PUC meeting at this time, and I'll entertain a motion to pass this resolution that we've all located in our packets. It's called Resolution approving and giving approval and consent to certain terms and covenants of the city's general obligation bonds, Series 2017A.
And I would second that.
Okay?
Did you make the motion?
No. I said I would
Oh,
entertain
Then you
a
have to
motion.
make it.
Oh, I would make that motion.
Thank you.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Pass unanimously. Thank you very much.
You could adjourn your
Yeah,
meeting
you should
now.
adjourn your meeting.
We stand
I
adjourned.
forgot there were 3 of you here.
You like those meetings?
Thanks, guys.
I have to wear
7 minute.
double billed hats so I can turn it around.
Yeah. All right,
You're
council.
welcome to
So
stay,
now,
but
Thank
you're
you all
also
for the
done.
work. Did you all this? Yeah.
Yeah, this one.
so council, we have before us resolution number 2017-29, the resolution awarding the sale of $3,575,000 general obligation bonds, Series 2017A, fixing the form and specifications thereof, providing for their execution and delivery, and providing for their payment. That is our resolution to accept the sale that happened today. So, is there a motion to?
I'll move the approval of that resolution.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Fantastic.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
Well, it's a
Yeah.
big project and I'm really glad we're finally getting it off the ground. Thank you for coming to talk with us, Chris. Appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Escape here.
Today's the third day in the last week that I've eaten at the Angry Trout, so.
There you go.
When in Rome.
I'm the Angry Trout with Trolls, I think, so anytime I can come up here, I'm really happy to be here, so thank you guys.
Fantastic. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And all right, so now we're going to step back for a sec. We're going to go to the park department report because we can do that now. So we have a number of seasonal park employees and seasonal staff that we need to approve hires for. They went through the application process, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 who are all looking to do seasonal park office work, seasonal custodial work, seasonal maintenance work, and or the golf course labor. So, would we like to go through them one at a time, or can we do them all at once?
Well, no. Let's do them in 2 chunks.
So we can do them for the golf course and then everything else.
We're going to do all of them except for Harris Mills. And then we're going to do that one different.
Oh, fantastic! I was going to make a joke
Wonder
about
why.
that, but now you're telling me that we should do it that way anyway.
You can still joke about it.
Yeah. Anyway, so here we stand with we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people that we're going to that we're looking for approval for: Tristan Bakovich, Hayden Hinchman, Ron Witzkowski, Hannah Curran, Caleb Phillips, Cameron Roy.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the hiring of those 6.
All right, there's a motion. Does anybody have a second to that?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just a question, is this the same number of employees that we've hired in
Yeah.
other years?
Yeah.
And they'll be working through the season, or are some of these employees done before the end of the busy season?
Sure, a number of them will be leaving before we would hope they would.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that sufficient?
I'm not sure they've
Well-
told us when they're leaving, but some of them are college students.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, I mean, we can stay busy through October. We certainly like to keep our folks into September, and we're not gonna have any college kids into September, so we'll just make.
Yeah, my thought was just as, you know, how busy is Dave gonna be come September, October, when the season is still going and, you know, some of these employees are gone and,
Yeah.
you know.
It's no different than in previous years,
Yeah.
so they know how to manage it.
We're making do.
Yeah.
All right.
Suck it up.
Well, I don't know if I'd say that. Anyway. So we have a motion and a second for the approval of those 6 that I previously mentioned. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right. So now, what's the difference with Harris Mills apart from the fact that it's related to Dave?
Dave
going
won't
to
be
the
participating in the voting.
Well, he
on
can't.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you gonna go shopping next door or something?
He can
Like right
sit
He
now?
can
down.
sit here. He just
Oh.
has to
He just
abstain.
has to abstain in the voting.
Okay,
All, la 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 la.
there we go.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah. Okay. fine.
Other than that, there's no difference. Just
Nope.
the-
Yeah, okay. I just wondered if there was something different about his contract, but it's
No.
just because there needs to be
Because he's a
An
direct
extension.
family member, we
Yeah,
don't wanna
yes,
have him
understand.
voting on a
Gotcha.
employment situation.
I would make motion to accept the appointment of Harris Mills to the seasonal maintenance worker position.
I will second that. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
You have to abstain. He didn't say words.
He did, he's good,
He abstained by
Good.
silence.
Yeah.
all clear.
All right, fantastic. So that is one of our items. The other item that we have is we have some roofing we need to do. So we have the rec hall down there, the little rec hall, which the shingles by my own inspection down there are pretty curly. They've been on that building for quite some time, and then the picnic pavilion as well. Those shingles are in pretty rough shape, especially considering some of the wind that hit them in the past year. 2 bids came in, one was lower than the other. Recommendation is to go with Lake Superior Construction for the projects. This would be a saving of about $900 or something like that.
So this is kind of borderline where we wouldn't necessarily come and ask the council about, just because of the amount that's involved. Something to think about for a future when we're really short on topics is we could revisit kind of financial policies about when you want to be involved in purchasing decisions and when you feel like you don't need to. We've certainly spent more money than this without having council authority on some utility matters. We're bringing it here just because, well, we've had some recent conversations about stuff and trying to make sure that all of our reasonings are clear and explanations are good, and so, you know, building habits and hiring folks. But this one seems pretty straightforward.
I guess the thing that caught my eye was as you noted in there, was having a contractor's license and or not.
Yeah.
It was sort of a standout for me.
Is that something that, yeah, anyway, never mind.
Although it's not necessary, right?
The contractor's license?
Right.
No, it's not.
Oh.
Yeah.
This is a contract we're making with them, so if they have a contractor's license, that means that they have a little bit more paperwork. It's like
No, they're
super-
both insured. It's
Yep.
it's not a huge job where we'd want them to be performance bond or anything like that.
Right.
It's just another indicator.
I'll make motion to approve the award of this to Bruce Johnson, Lake Superior Construction, as the low bidder, and the recommendation of the park manager.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? It's gonna be good to see those things re-roofed, I think. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right. Do we have any other business that we need to discuss?
No.
All right. Dave, you're up.
Why council, just one little plug is that all through the summer, anyone 18 and younger can have 2 free meals a day through kayak countywide, so all daycare providers can bring all their kids to the school and
Wow.
get fed. It's just a pretty amazing service, I think.
How did they get that funded?
I don't recall specifically, but it was a
great-
grant.
It's a great program.
Was there an age limit to that? or-
18.
18,
18,
18 and
Yeah,
younger.
you're not 18.
free lunch.
And they said that, they looked at me directly when they said that.
Free lunch.
Yeah, yeah. And then we had a Trails Commission meeting, but I don't know that I need to report anything there.
Because he's going to report it for you.
Yeah, I mean,
Fair enough. Anything
Pass.
else?
Either that or I'm gonna start, and then he's gonna
I'll
say,
jump in.
uh,
I'll support.
oh,
Yeah.
I remember now.
Please,
Pass.
please.
You're done?
Yeah, pass.
For
Tim, you're
now.
up.
We should have a stick we can pass.
The talking stick.
Well, we can talk a little bit about the Parks and Trails meeting. The Parks and Trails Commission is working on securing grant money to do a master plan for the Sawtooth Bluffs project. And if that grant is awarded, and it's a grant application to the coastal program through their planning function, and seems like there might be good likelihood that might happen. The planning process would start in September and be completed by the end of February, which would then put it in line with the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission's timelines for getting plans reviewed and possibly being eligible for first steps of funding. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But obviously, if there is a planning process, it'll be an open public process and involve, I believe there are 4 public meetings scheduled as part of that process, which case, stakeholders would be invited and, encouraged to participate. And right now, there's nothing but old conversations about that property, so what might end up happening is, I think, anybody's guess right now, but, I think there's a lot of interest with different groups to utilize that property in a better way, and, there can be, a master plan can be developed that is approved and ranked and scored by the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission to be eligible for legacy funding. Potentially, something could happen up there.
That's exciting.
Yeah. The only other thing I wanted to talk about is, I went down to the legislature a couple weeks before the end of the session for the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities kind of lobby day, and it was kind of an interesting day down there. And I talked to both Rob Eklund and Tom Bach, and of course, it was kind of the calm before the storm. 2 weeks out, they were, as the Democrats, they were basically said, well, we're kind of sitting on our thumbs waiting for something to happen from the other side. Well, didn't happen until the last couple days, and of course, I'm not sure I still understand the full implications of what took place, other than what I read in the paper today, that the governor signed all the budget bills, but did a line item
Veto.
veto for the funding for the legislature, which seems kind of an interesting way to get their attention, but, I guess we'll see what happens. The couple of things that I brought away from the conversations with both Rob and Tom were that they're both very supportive of the Gitchigami Trail, and everything I saw up to the last few days had the Gitchigami included in everybody's bonding bill, so I think it's still in there. So hopefully we'll see progress on Gitchigami from the city limits out to the rock cut happening in the near future. The other thing that Rob and I talked about a little bit was the Grand Marais Harbor project, and you know, the fact that it wasn't in this year's bonding bill and wasn't gonna be supported because, in this year's bonding bill by Tom or Rob, just because there were too many other priorities. But the suggestion was, is that this should be something that the city should, be asking to be included in the governor's bonding, proposals, and I think there's a deadline coming up
Well,
soon.
it's very soon.
Soon.
Like, I don't know if we could pull it off if we had something at your next agenda.
Yeah, and I
Have
don't
to
know
look
what
at
that,
that.
what that means in terms of submitting a request, if there have been numbers that have been thrown around for what the cost of that project is, and, you know, I mean, I don't quite understand. I mean, it's a DNR project, why the
Why
city
is
is
it-
asking for the bonding, but it seems like that's the direction it has to come from, because I'm not sure how that all.
That's a new development, if that's the case.
Well, I mean, I was surprised when Rob suggested that the city should be submitting a request for that bonding.
I'm wondering if they, I mean, do they fully does Rob fully understand that this is a
Yeah.
DNR project? I mean, that this is
Oh, I-
not a city project?
I believe he does, but, you know,
Maybe not.
I think it was a power and numbers sort of thing, like when we went to Split Rock, Dave presented, you know, from the city.
yeah.
And then the DNR was also there and kind of said, well, it's, you know, DNR is half of it, and then the bonding would be half of it. And so I think it's, you know, it looks.
We went to
it
that
looked-
meeting because the DNR asked us to.
They asked us to, they invited us
We've been
to.
talking to them about this project for 8 years.
I feel like probably, if we are gonna be pushing for something, we need to have assurances from the DNR that they're also gonna be approaching it. Because like what we did, especially down at Split Rock when we went down there, was we made presentations. You know, I did an introduction, Dave did the whole spiel about what was happening, and then you know, the guys from the DNR sat in the back. You know, to me it seems like we need to have those guys up there with us. You know, they need to be sending the message along with us. If it's really going to be truly power by numbers or power in numbers, then they need to be standing next to us when we're making these conversations or making these bids. So if we send a letter to the governor saying, hey, we got to do this, we need to have a letter from the DNR to put in that same envelope that says, this is a really good project. We support this project. We want this too. And maybe they're assuming that that's just happening because it's a DNR project, but it seems to me like the message is not really getting through that, you know, that we're all working together on this, and we need everybody's participation in it.
Getting in the
So-
governor's bonding request is not a letter to the governor either. They have an elaborate
Right.
online
It's a
sign
big
up.
process.
Because everybody wants some, you know,
Yes.
and,
Yep.
But it doesn't seem like we would be the agency to be doing that, though. I mean, it would.
it's not uncommon. I mean, there's lots and lots of city projects that get into there, but it seems like this project is much more of a fit for the state to be asking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Since
it's
they're
a
the
state project.
initiator of the idea, and they were the ones that drew up all the plans. And,
Yeah,
it's a state project within a
I'm
city.
starting to feel confused.
well, I mean, they're obviously not prioritizing it either. So I think maybe the message from Eklund is, if you want this prioritized, you're going to have to do it yourself.
Well,
Or
and
does he fully
I'm
understand?
gonna be on a fishing trip with the deputy commissioner from DNR this weekend, so, you know, I think we'll be talking about this project too, you know. And Rob might actually join in with us for a bit of the time too, so I might get a chance to talk to him.
Is Tom gonna be there too?
That would be
No Tom.
Where you going?
Tom's not invited, no. So,
At which lake are you going?
yes.
Look at all these boats.
Which lake?
Look at all these
Yeah.
boats out here.
Huh,
But at any rate, you know, we should be aware, and I think what came away from the conversation with Rob was that when the legislative committee goes around and does their kind of their field trips of looking at projects, he would like this project to be on that schedule so they get up to Grand Marais and look at the facility and have an understanding of what it is.
That's the 2 hours meeting we did.
Yes. And yeah, okay. I guess my point is just that I think it looks good if we're also, yes, we want this.
Yeah,
You know,
I
so-
would agree, and I don't know what that process is, but,
We'll reach out to a few folks. figure out what to do.
I think that's it.
Okay, cool.
Wait, you're waiting. to
Tracy,
meetings.
what you got?
I was just gonna clarify from our restrooms meeting last week, like where we're at, like, did we send out those surveys, or you're still revising them, or
That's a good question.
I think the latter sounds pretty accurate.
which is what you're
Still
revising
revising.
Still
them?
revising.
Because we had a
I
date
think
by
so.
the middle of June to make sure we got to everybody, or have another meeting. Is that right?
I should just give.
Yes, that's
Okay.
right.
And then I'm serious. If you give me the time, I will go and make sure. I'll go to people who don't respond. I mean, I'll go have
Yeah,
a person.
We'll take you up on that.
But as you know, I'll be gone that middle part of that meeting. So if there's time, because tomorrow's the 1st,
Mhm.
to kind of do whatever, I'm more than happy to do that. And a side note, I was approached again by an interested person on this very topic. One more time. Asking, could we please do something instructive on that?
With bathrooms?
Yes.
What'd you say?
I just gave him that we had this meeting and these are the things we're thinking about and we're going to take these next steps and talk, go by whatever.
I'd love
Just
to hear
this
your
or
feedback
next.
and your ideas.
And are we going to joint powers meeting? Whatever you call them with everybody?
With everybody?
Yeah.
We had talked about that. I don't think
Yeah.
we'd set a date.
Right.
There is not one scheduled, not yet.
You just mentioned the DNR project, what I was going to ask you about ask in general, but you just answered about that. Because I was kind of curious, the same thing out of the state budget, what surfaced or what didn't. Any other projects that affect us out of that state budget in any way? Or
I'm not
Not
sure
true.
yet.
I tried to find stuff too, and I just couldn't find anything that was down in
There's a couple other things, I think, in a general sense. The workforce housing funding could be something that might be beneficial to One Roof in their project, both here in Grand Marais and in the Lutzen project. And I know that there was a dollar amount that was included for funding, but again, where it ended up in the final, bill, I really don't know.
And then just a passing side, there was an article I read, I believe yesterday, that talked about school referendums not doing well around the state. Did you guys?
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
caught the one little side note that Dayton had made the comment that maybe these farmers would then be exempt from having to contribute. And if I took that right, it sounded like seasonal here, homes here aren't contributing into, the issue we have.
Right.
And so if they exempted farmers, and I just thought as a policy thing, how does that really help anything? It just seems like such a backwards way to do this. And so I just wondered if you guys happen to catch that, and as a way of you to solve a problem, it doesn't feel like the way to do it. And it certainly wouldn't help that logic help us in this county at all to take that approach to it. So I just happened to catch that news-wise. I think that's everything.
Okay. Well, I had a meeting with Nordic Nature Group people and some folks at the McKnight Foundation in regards to the request for funding for the Green Steps and the Climate Action Plan coordination. Their concern about that was McKnight's concern about that was kind of twofold. One was they didn't think we were asking for enough money, first of all, and second of all, they were concerned about the longevity of this position and their participation as a funding agent. So, they said that they normally fund 1 or 2 year programs like this to get them started, and then they have to make sure that there is funding to continue them. So they were asking lots of questions about what it looks like in the future, something for us to think about. What does a position like this look like in the future for the city beyond the Climate Action Plan, when we're talking about implementation of such things, when we're talking about the continuing participation of the city in Green Steps? That's something that we need to keep in mind. And what's the appetite for the city of, for putting city resources towards that. So that's one thing. Another thing is that the city has received another accolade through the Green Steps program, believe it or not. And they invited me to go down to Rochester to the League of Minnesota Cities conference to pick up the award. My dad lives down in that area. I might do that. I'm not sure. I have to check the calendar and have to get approval from the powers that be to do such a thing. So I'll continue to work on that. Maybe I'll bring home another award for
Well,
Grand
if
Marais.
you don't, I'll pick it up for you.
Are you gonna be down there?
Oh, yeah, I'm going. That's why I'm not gonna be
Oh,
here.
really? You are?
Mhm.
Well, then pick it up for us.
Yeah, I'm going.
Super. Well, good for you.
Didn't I tell you that?
No, I didn't hear that, but
Check your email.
been getting that a lot lately. Also this past week, you may have noticed quite a few bikers in town, not the mountain biker or the gravel bikers for this weekend, but previous Thursday, we had 41 riders who did the US Bike Route 41, which is the new route that goes from the Twin Cities up to the Canadian border. They swung through town. I stopped and said hello to them, and was very glad to see that. Already we've been getting a lot of attention about that. So when we're talking about multimodal transportation on Highway 61, and we're talking about this addition, making it better for different types of transportation, all the more important because of initiatives like this that are happening. So that's another piece of, in support of what we've already been doing for an active living community. It's really exciting stuff. I think we're going to see a lot more people coming through here, and that hopefully will give some more energy to the Gitchigami projects, for extending the Gitchigami to the places where the shoulder is not so good. Library board had a meeting. They were talking about budget stuff already, and trying to get new board members up to speed with how the budget for the library works. That's, we have a little bit of history to go through with them about the last couple of years, and then the previous many years. Last couple of years, we've asked for a larger increase than what is automatically approved, and the previous years than that, we did not even come close to the 5% automatic renewing. That's written into that joint powers agreement. This year, it's also looking like the library budget will be less than that 5%, which is what we promised both the county and the city would happen, and the numbers for the library are looking incredibly healthy. So that's really good. The puzzle tree is going back up soon. I think that we've figured out the foundation problem with that, and that's going to be going up soon. And the poetry walk will be going in as soon as the contractor gets
Early June is what
around
we
to
hear,
doing it.
which seems
So-
like pretty soon.
Yeah,
Any
So-
day- any day
Could be
now.
any time.
it could be any day.
Tomorrow.
Superior Hiking Trail Association had a meeting as well that I attended, that they were talking about projects, the hill expansion down in Lutsen, and also the Sawtooth Bluffs project here. They're excited to be a part of those conversations, and we certainly welcome them to be, for being part of that conversation. North House had a board meeting. They painted the 501 building green. It's now known as the Green Building because they like colors, and they are working on international exchange programs and things like that to learn how they can make the North House experience a more authentic folk school experience. They've been up to some really cool projects lately. They made a timber frame out of hand-hewn timbers, which took a really, really long time, and it's a gorgeous structure. It's down on campus right now. They also are working on policy improvements and are never sitting still for very long. And Mike and I have been both having conversations with leadership at North House to discuss the continued partnership of the city and North House, some joint projects that we might be able to work together on, and the lease organization, or the organization of the lease that we have with them. The bike rodeo happened. That was pretty exciting to see. That I just put that down to mention it. I sat in on a conversation with Elena up at Soil and Water, where they were talking with Lake County, who is looking at some options for different types of GIS mapping for their stormwater situation. And some of the modeling that's available is truly incredible. The things that they can do and the predictions that they can put together with these modeling programs. And the county is thinking about going in with Lake County to be able to get some of this software and someone trained to use it, so that we can use this modeling information ourselves to create more accurate stormwater plans, with the city being one of the main targets of that, because we have the most concentration of non-permeable surface. And we have problems with stormwater, and we know that. So that was pretty exciting. I'm not sure exactly where that stands right now, but I was really glad to be a part of that. The Public Health and Human Services has been having childcare meetings that I've been listening in on. I haven't actually gotten to attend them, but I've been getting the debriefings for them. They're trying to discuss what different projects could be to help with the childcare dilemma that we have in the county. And one of the ideas that's come up is kind of a childcare center concept, and there's no actions going any direction yet. I mean, there's just a lot of brainstorming and trying to figure out what would a solution look like for this community. We've pretty much identified what the problem is now. So there's a lot of work on that. I also received a couple of conversations from people around town, one of which is the corner, the Blue Water Ben Franklin corner there, that when downtown is really, really busy, people don't stop at those stop signs, because they can't see them. So it makes me wonder if it makes sense to have one of those stop for people in the crosswalk signs like right in the middle of that intersection, or if we can find some way to back the cars away from the stop signs a little bit so people see them before they're right on top of them. I think that's a pretty easy fix if we can agree on something to do that isn't going to be too disruptive of the traffic down there.
Volunteer traffic cop.
That's right.
Thanks,
Somebody with the
thanks for
white
doing that.
with the white gloves. You can
That's
have
what
the
you
white
meant, right?
gloves.
Get a
and just like
Whistle, yeah, there you go.
whistle and white gloves.
You get a uniform.
I'm pretty certain that someone would want to do that.
There's smells. So those are the things that I had on my list to discuss, and that's all I have. Did I remind you of anything, Dave? I shouldn't have
Oh,
asked.
so many things.
So many things. All right.
I have one thing
Yes.
that I did remember. So
That's one.
I was down along the harbor once the lights were on. And there are different lights along the harbor. Some of them are
Mhm.
black, some of them are the old amber, and then there's those bright white ones. Are those the one your sister were talking about? I'm totally confused. I thought you meant that she was talking about ones up the hillside.
Well,
She
she's talking about
was.
all of them.
She was talking
Oh.
about the ones
All
on the
of them
highway
that are
and the
that white.
ones along the harbor walk.
Oh.
All of them that are that white color.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that are problematic.
So the white ones are the new ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how
Yeah,
come they're like
not
a whole different?
new-ish.
Oh no, they've been there and I haven't noticed.
Some of them have been there for a couple of years. Some of
I
them are.
missed that.
Yeah.
That's one of my most favorite, not happy with things. So I'm surprised I didn't notice
Huh.
the white ones sooner. Because we all know what I would like to do with most of those lights.
No? Oh.
Well,
Or
we'll have
put
a
them at a lower watt.
we'll have a
so-
crack at all the lights along the Highway 61 corridor pretty soon.
Yep.
But that
Talking
would
about
not
that.
include those.
Well, there's no reason we
Why
wouldn't
wouldn't
want
it?
to come up with
Really?
a scheme
No, that was
that
a
we want to
question.
follow. That project won't include those, but we might have a strategy that gets developed that we start doing.
I'd like for the people, I'd like everyone to actually be able to see the harbor at night and not get blinded by those lights bouncing back in your eyeballs.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, I had to go there.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
buy a new light bulb should be a simple solution.
Well,
no,
just
it's not.
the whole-
It's
yeah.
not a bulb. It's
Yeah.
the entire
The entire
fixture is an
fixture.
integrated LED unit.
Oh, it is.
So there are some bulbs. We
Okay.
actually purchased
Simple.
some replacement bulbs for these lights downtown that are LEDs that we're gonna just experiment with a few different colors and see what they look like. We also, I don't know if everybody got that report that I saw George had been passing it around, and that SIMPA had provided for us a lighting report that's,
Mhm.
you know, scientific engineering lighting report. So it's a real easy read. We
That
were-
was sarcasm.
we did get a nice chat with Keith, our lighting guy from SIMPA, who works with businesses on rebate stuff, and he's an engineer, so he can help us understand some of that. But it's just not it's not as simple as the color of the lights. There's a lot of different factors that are involved in it. Obviously, there's a lot of studies that are going into it. But the color is an easy thing for people to just
Pick up.
grab onto, and it does work. It takes care of a lot of the issues. So we're going to be looking at 3000 K and warmer temperatures when we're putting in street lights, and but the ones that are in there now are 4000 K, which is why they look a little brighter.
Well, even just the shape of the fixture, right? So I mean, it's totally going
Yeah.
downward and not.
Yeah, we've got separate issues going on now. The ones along the Harbor Walk, they've been my least favorite lights in town as well. There's too many of them. They're too low. They shoot the light straight out. You practically don't need a lighthouse with those things. So I'm with you there. It's just been a matter of hate to invest in, because there's really no easy fix for those. They need to be completely redone.
Well, that's why I wondered, why is that whole fixture different? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's all integrated.
So you can take the head off and put a new
Okay.
head on them.
Alright.
And that's not going to get you to the solution, because at some point we have to redistribute how many of them there are, which we'll get a chance to do when we go through the highway project, the ones that are along the walk.
Mhm.
And then the rest of them that go further into Boulder Park, we can decide what we want to do with those. But there are not quite as many of those.
Right,
in-
not like
in
the
there.
concentration there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe they could become hanging basket tower things.
There's some taller ones in the parking lot at Artist Point too, right?
Mhm.
That's us, right? That's our responsibility.
There are lights, yeah.
Okay.
We have a lot of lights.
We have lots of lights. The best lights. Anything else? We are adjourned.
Thanks, Chris.
Hi, Chris.